Hello, and welcome to the Unexceptional Moms podcast. This is Ellen, and this is episode 2. Today, we're going to be talking about the challenges of taking care of us. Right, Erin?
This is Erin, and so the things we're going to discuss are, one, the challenges, because the truth is that for moms of kids with special needs, those challenges are different than they are for other families. Then we're going to talk about why it's important to take care of ourselves. And finally, we're going to talk about practical or just ways that we can take care of ourselves. And so we will discuss spiritual, emotional, physical, and practical. In all those areas, we will discuss some ways that we can care for ourselves.
And some things that have been helpful for us too, that hopefully other people will find really helpful. So when it comes to challenges, what are some of the challenges? Why do we not take care of ourselves?
Did you see the very first one when we discussed this? The very first one I said was guilt.
Yes, which is really interesting because I just did a Facebook Live about guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We had been talking about that in our, in my Facebook page. I was talking about that, and it's huge.
It is huge. There's so many needs.
So many needs, and we carry a lot of guilt about that, and some of that guilt is really unfounded in some ways. We just take that on.
Yes, I would agree completely.
I mean, we feel guilty about all sorts of stuff. What we don't do enough, or we're not trying the new therapy, or if only we could work more on speech, or if we did more exercises at home, if we had eaten different, maybe our child would not have been born with a disability. I mean, the list can go on and on of how we take on guilt about things that are logical and things that are not even logical.
And then when it comes to taking care of yourself, the guilt is, well, I don't want to leave my child, or someone else needs my attention, or I shouldn't care for myself because I'm super mom. I mean, that's sort of the culture that we're in today, is that we are supposed to be the super mom. So caring for yourself is really not discussed much or highly valued in our culture, I don't think.
It's not. And I have encountered that a lot of people feel that they would be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
There's the guilt of, I don't want to be selfish and take care of me and put me first, because what about my family? What about my kids?
Which brings up another one that I had noted was, if I have time, which is not abundant, let's just be honest, right? But if I do have time, I feel like I need to devote that time to my husband or my other children, the siblings of my children with special needs, and they will come before me. Because my time is so limited.
Yep. Or on the other hand, the time that I have, it's going to be to get all the errands I need to get done, or all the little details that I have not had time to do. And there's always laundry, and there's always grocery shopping, and there's always making meals or laundry. I mean, we don't have enough time.
No.
That said, I think a lot of us spend a lot of time on Facebook and other social media.
Well, that's valid.
It is valid. And there's a lot of connections, and there's a lot of encouragement and support that comes from that.
That's true. That's true. That's my justification.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But it's true that most of us feel super busy. I know I feel really busy all the time. Mm-hmm. Right before school started, I just felt like if time could just slow down a little bit. I was not ready for school to start. I bought school supplies the day we were supposed to take them to school.
Well, I know that.
Yeah, you do, because we're at your house and we didn't have them. So it's so busy, and it just feels like a hamster in a wheel, and you just keep going and going and going, and there's no stopping because everything is going so fast.
Well, then that can tie back into the guilt. I mean, it's just a big vicious circle, right? So guilt that your house doesn't look good, or that you're not making organic, fresh, whole food,
gluten-free, sugar-free
for your kids, right?
Everything free, yes. Diets.
So what else did we say? Childcare was brought up.
Childcare, yes.
It's hard to find childcare when you have kids with special needs. You can't just call the teenager down the street, depending on your child's special need, to come watch your kids. It takes, for my one in particular, it takes a specialized person who can care for her. That makes it very challenging to get childcare.
Right. And if you want to go and take a class, or if you want to go exercise, if you don't have that person to care for your child, then you really can't.
No, because you can't put them in childcare at the YMCA or whatever.
Right.
And then the other thing would be money. So we finally have money that we can use for our respite. But when we didn't, I mean, by the time we would pay for a sitter, we'd have to go sit in a parking lot and stare at each other because there was no money to do anything else.
Right. That's a very valid point, because so many of us do have that as an issue. I mean, I don't know a lot of special needs families that are rolling in the dough.
No.
And that they have an abundance of money. You know,
Right.
We all probably live within a budget, and sometimes for any extra, it's going to go again towards our kids because of a need, because of medical equipment or medication or hospital. I mean, the list could go on and on. Now, I will say that for people who are not familiar with Kara Dietert, I think that's how you say her name, she blogs at Dancing in Through the Rain. You know what? I'm not going to know, but I am going to find out, and I'm going to add that to the blog post, ellenstumble.com/episode 2, the number 2. And I'm going to link to her website because I know that she created a resource for special needs parents that's about respite. And
nice.
I think, yes, and I have that because I signed up to get it. And it has a lot of really good information where parents can find respite from other organizations, or where people can get money for respite. And I think that's a super valuable resource for everybody. So it is Kara Dietert. I just need to get her blog right. So I will have that link for everybody as we're talking about it. But going back, I think another reason why we have a hard time taking care of ourselves, or a challenge, is definitely exhaustion. Too tired.
Yeah. By the end of the day, I don't want to go exercise. I don't want to go do any, I just want to relax. It's sometimes the first time in the day that I've been able to sit still.
Yes. I just want to watch Netflix.
Yes, quite frankly.
I do. You know, I saw a cartoon, and it is a lady, and she's like overwhelmed, and she's saying, there's so much, I don't even know what to do. And then she says, so I'm just going to go and wrap myself in a blanket, lay down and watch Netflix. And then the guy comes over and he says, well, let's make a plan and let's tackle everything. And she goes, shh, it's working. And I love that because I feel like that's my life sometimes. Like, there's so much going on. And if I'm going to sit down and relax, I'm just so tired and so exhausted that I want to watch Netflix.
Yes. My brain then can quiet and I can focus on something
else.
Something else.
Yes. And I think it's a very valid point. If we're tired and if we don't have the energy, then we just don't have that push to make us want to get up and exercise, or to do something to take care of us. We don't do that. You know, I think another reason why it is a challenge, I think that sometimes a lack of self-esteem plays into that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there are, at least personally, I have not met a lot of special needs parents that think, oh, I'm this great mom, you know, I'm so great. Like, I think we are all aware of our challenges and limitations, but sometimes we allow that to affect our self-esteem. And that ties with the guilt. You know,
which
we have
also
all
ties with the incidence of depression in parents of children with special needs.
Right.
It all mixes together too.
It does. And there are studies that actually show that as special needs parents, we have a higher incidence of clinical depression and clinical anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I know personally, I have anxiety issues, and I've always had them, but when I became a special needs mom, it's like they exploded. And that is the reality for a lot of us, that we do struggle with some mental health issues. And that makes it hard to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's hard to admit to it, isn't it? Sometimes.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
It's so hard to be at a point where you say, I'm really struggling to take care of myself, and this is why, and to actually be able to name the reasons why. And if we can, and I think especially when it comes to depression and anxiety, sometimes it's even hard to ask for help.
Sure it is. And for me, I'm just going to speak for myself here. There's some pride in that the asking for help, because I can do it all kind of person, and I don't like to ask for help. Now, I've had to, and I've learned to, and it's blessed me, but that can be a very hard thing for a lot of people to do.
Yes. And I think it has to do with the culture. And obviously here we come from different cultures, because I'm Mexican and I grew up in Mexico. And I do see, as an outsider to the culture, yet living in the culture, that Americans really value the individual.
Yes.
And to being self-sufficient, where I come from a culture where you kind of really do life with your extended family and with everybody. So there's a little bit more of that support. And I think in my interacting with people, as you know, I have this idea of creating family no matter where I'm at, whether it's family or not. But even being here, sometimes it is hard to be the person asking for help. I was a pastor's wife for 13 years. And I always felt like there was an expectation of me to always have it all together. I was the one helping people.
Exactly.
I was not the one asking for help. So it's hard. I think you're right. It's really hard to ask for help. And I think then that becomes a challenge to taking care of ourselves.
Yes, definitely.
But then what happens if we don't take care of ourselves? Because, ultimately we know the reasons why. And we just talked about some of them, because I'm sure that there are more. But why do we need to take care of ourselves? Why is it so important?
For me personally, when I am taking care of myself, I am happier. I am a better mom. I have more fun. The hard days don't affect me as much because I know I'm going to get a breather. So when speaking of mental health, I definitely see an overall improvement in that when I'm properly caring for myself.
I always think our sanity depends on, taking care of ourselves. I think rest, we are so exhausted. I think sometimes taking care of ourselves really help us to rest. And then in turn helps us to have more energy. And I think the most important thing, and why it is really so important, is that we need to be there for our families, and we need to be able to take care of our families.
Yeah.
I think if you ask, special needs parents, I would think that the majority would say one of their biggest fears, not fears, but what they worry about, one of the biggest worries is what happens when I'm gone? What's going to happen, with my kids when I'm gone? And the sad reality is that I have friends who obviously are still around, but because they did not take care of themselves, even now they are unable to care for their child.
Interesting.
And I think that's something that we really need to think about. If we really want to be present, and if we really want to take care of our kids as best as we can and our family, we need to take care of us. Because if we are sick, if we're battling serious health issues that will happen, not could, but will happen if we don't take care of us, then we cannot take care of our kids. So then it's not just an issue of what will happen when I'm gone. It's what will happen when I no longer can.
Well, and that all ties back to the whole idea that we can actually parent our children better short term and long term when we care for ourselves.
Absolutely. So this is where where we started thinking, so what are ways that we can take care of ourselves? And that's why we came up with the spiritual, emotional, physical, and practical. And, part of why we're doing this is because we're not just physical beings. Mm-hmm. We're so much more than that. Mm-hmm. And there are different areas to us. So the first one that we had started with and we thought about is spiritual. Because at least I know for Erin and for myself, that's a big part of our lives.
Exactly. And we are going to dive into that a lot more next time. But as a Christian and some of the struggles we've gone through, that has been really a difficult area for me. And even with just the exhaustion and the time, is how to devote time to my spiritual life. That's a lot harder now than it used to be.
Mm-hmm. And like Erin mentioned, our next episode, we are actually going to dive into issues of faith and raising kids with disabilities and the challenges of them, because sometimes it's really hard to pray and it's really hard to feel that connection with God and to feel that you're thriving in your spiritual life. Mm-hmm. But as we talk about taking care of ourselves, we recognize that it needs to be easy and it needs to be meaningful.
Yes.
Right. And Erin, you had some really great ideas about what we can do.
Only because this is kind of where I am now, is easy and meaningful. But, there are a lot of even online little devotionals that don't take a lot of time. I know a lot of people really like Jesus Calling.
I do. I love it.
I have not used it, but a lot of people like that. It doesn't take a lot of time. It gives you something. But let me show you what I've been using. I am looking it up on my phone. I found this little app called Through the Word, and the if you can see here, that's kind of the logo for it. And what it does is it takes you through a Bible study, and it only takes, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so. So first you listen to a small passage of teaching on a piece of scripture, and then you can read it or listen to it, which that's what I do. I listen to it afterwards. And so every day I am getting scripture and I am hearing some teaching on it and getting some valuable insights, and it's not taking me long. And I can do it audio, which has become really a big deal for me lately. That makes things a lot easier.
It is. The beauty of being able to listen to something while you're folding laundry or while you are working on school lunches or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It really
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, and this is, a whole topic in and of itself, is finding a place to worship. And as well as I do, the struggles of that for families with special needs.
Yes.
So
that's my passion in life, as you know.
But they're out there. Those churches are out there that will meet the needs of families with children with special needs. They're out there. But it takes a lot of effort.
It takes a lot of effort, and it's unfortunately hard to find those places that are open and accepting of our families sometimes.
Yes.
It is. And I know for me, personally, I really connect with music and with worship that way. Mm-hmm. And I'm not someone who loves just turning on the Christian radio station. And that's because I don't love every single song. And that could also be a whole other
yes, ma'am.
Yes. But I really love like Spotify or iHeartRadio, where you can create a playlist. And I do have a playlist of my favorite songs. And sometimes I play those songs and I listen and I sing along. And after, just a little bit of time doing that, I feel that connection with God, and I feel that that uplifting, that I needed to not focus on me, but to focus on God and to really worship Him. And I think that can be very helpful for some people. So that is spiritual, practical ways. Spiritually. What about physical? which is where that's what we think about most of the time when we think about taking care of ourselves.
Right. I mean, it has been proven that exercise is just incredibly beneficial in every way. It benefits you, obviously, physically, but so mentally and emotionally. It's great for your mental health. It's great for your body. When I'm regularly exercising, I feel I have more energy. I will tell you that is not where I am right now. I am not exercising. I go like this with exercise, but I have more energy. I feel stronger. I feel more able to take on the world when I exercise. But it's so hard. It's so hard.
It is hard to do. And some of us, like me, we go to extremes where I loved Zumba so much, but I kept coming with every single excuse not to go to the gym. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't have time or who was going to watch my kids. And I knew that they were looking to hire new instructors. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this. So I became an instructor. So now I have no excuse. I have to go and teach my class.
Right.
But what is so true about that, the energy, is that there are mornings where I am bemoaning having to go because I just don't feel like it. The mentally, and I mean, just overall health, I just don't feel like it and I don't want to go. But as soon as I get there and I start dancing, I tell you, I forget. And what I mean is that I forget that I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Because I love it. And just releasing those toxins and doing something that I really do enjoy, I feel so energized. So at the end of that hour, I do have so much more energy. And actually my day goes a little bit better.
And I would add that you don't have to join a gym. It doesn't have to cost money. And you don't have to devote an hour a day to do it. So
I do it only twice a week.
Right, twice a week. Yeah. Or people will say, choose the stairs instead of the elevator. Or, just all those little things. There are little things you can build into your day to keep your body active. It's hard for me.
Yes. And the other thing, if you have a dog, taking your dog out for a walk. I mean, sometimes I do that I know he needs to go on a walk, but I think sometimes I need to go on those walks even more than he does.
Right.
And I joke that he is the one that takes me on walks, but those things, are good. Or, even with your kids, if they enjoy music, just play some music and dance.
Yep.
We do that at home, and sometimes we even record ourselves being silly and dancing, and that just kind of gets you moving. And it's a really fun bonding thing that I do with my kids. I think they love it.
And it just kind of goes back to easy and meaningful, the same as the spiritual.
Right. So what about emotional? What are some practical emotional things that we can do to take care of us?
So for me, this is, it looks a little different than spiritual and physical because it's just the thing that I love to do, the thing that brings me peace. I love to read. And so giving myself time to read, even if it's an audiobook, which I've been doing a lot of lately, I just really enjoy that. And it's just, if you love art, then go buy some supplies and paint, or go take a class, or did you play an instrument 20 years ago? Pull it back out. And if music makes your heart happy and it brings you peace, it's just finding the things that are about you, that you love.
Yes.
That aren't what your kids love or what you're doing because your husband wants to,
Right. Sometimes I think, remember those things that you loved to do before you had kids.
Right.
And can you invest in those things again? Can you start doing that again? What is something that gives you life? That's a good way to think about it. Because those little things can make a big difference.
Yeah. For me, reading is sort of like Netflix, right? I get to just kind of go away for a while.
Yes.
And it can be nonfiction and it can mix in with spiritual. If I'm reading something that is encouraging me in my faith, I can mix those two together. But then what I find is after a few nonfictions, I just need a good fiction. I just need something that is totally unrealistic, that I can get into that world and just put everything behind me.
Which I'm the opposite of you. I really only read fiction books. And then once in a while, I do pick up the nonfiction books. But those are, you know, far in between, because I do. If I'm going to read a book, I don't want it to have to do with my life.
Right.
I want to go to another world and get to learn someone else's life.
My nonfiction is often memoirs. I love memoirs.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes.
So they are sort of, they read like fiction often.
Yes, a good memoir does read like fiction. I do. I love memoirs. And I know we'll probably talk about Jillian Marchenko at some point, but she
of course we will.
Phenomenal memoirs. And we talked about having her join us.
I know.
So she does. She has 2 phenomenal memoirs. One about being a special needs mom,
which is Sunshine Down.
Mm-hmm. And then she has the one about depression.
Still Life.
Still Life. Yep. So that's a shout out to Jillian Marchenko with her great memoirs. Yes. Okay. So, and lastly, practical, like the little things that we can do that make a big difference. So this is where I created a special needs parent survival guide. And this is the freebie that you get for this episode. So in the survival guide, there are 13 practical things that you can do to find peace in the midst of chaos, and 13 practical ways to take care of yourself, so that you don't feel like you're in this, the hamster wheel is spinning and spinning and spinning, and there's no time and there's no energy. And some of them are really simple, like knowing what's for dinner the night before. Mm-hmm. Cultivating thankfulness, embracing your limits. And the guide also has verses for those days where you just feel wrecked and the really hard days. So go to the website ellenstumbo.com/episode 2, the number 2. And you're going to see a bright orange button that says, yes, send me the guide. Click on it, and then you're going to have it in your inbox right away. Anything else to add to that, Erin?
Are there any of the practical tips that particularly have been helpful to you? Like, what if you had a favorite? What's your favorite?
Well, my favorite really is knowing what's for dinner the night before, because
it makes a huge difference.
I used to be the kind of person who at 5:30 had no idea what was for dinner. Right. And it just became such a dreaded time of the day, and the kids are hungry and I'm hungry, and then that just makes you run to the drive-through or go out to eat, and then you go out to eat but kids are crabby, and it just never really turned out really well. And when I started doing that, just knowing what was for dinner the night before, it really changed things. Mm-hmm. It was amazing how that one little thing made such a huge difference for the next day.
Yeah.
So that is actually my favorite. And, the cultivating thankfulness. And as you know, this year I have really been very, just really intentional. That's the word. Very intentional about that thankfulness. So every day I have thought about something that I'm thankful for that day, especially when days are hard. I mean, we've gone through surgery this year, and we've been at hospitals this year, and my family is going through a huge transition right now, and it's amazing how cultivating thankfulness has made such a big difference. Mm-hmm. And I would challenge everybody to do that, because when you start focusing on the good, you don't have a lot of time to focus on the bad. And there's actually research that shows that the happiest people are the people that choose to focus on the good.
Right.
And that is what cultivating thankfulness does. So those are 2 of the things that are in the guide. That would be my top 2.
Okay.
But you read it, Erin. What's your favorite?
Well, the dinner one is really big for me too, actually. My least favorite question on earth is what's for dinner.
Yes.
It became a dreaded time of day. We were eating out too much, and I can't say I'm always great about it, but I'm better than I was. And it makes a big difference.
It really does. Absolutely. So as we wrap up, we just talked about the challenges of taking care of us, why we need to take care of ourselves, and we talked about ways to combat that. And there's also the free survival guide for everybody. And next week, we will be talking about
faith.
So that's, we're excited about that. That's a big topic.
It is.
And as always, we want to invite people to send us questions, add to the conversation, what are ways that people have taken care of themselves. Subscribe to our podcast, share it with your friends. Anything else, Erin?
No, I think we're good.
Yes.
Ready to tackle faith.
Yes. So until next week, guys, have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.